I think which is why all of you are here, all of us are here on day 3. I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants from across 10 plus states of India. Um, it's a small number, but then we have people spread across the country. That's a fact we can be glad about. And I see people are joining steadily. Uh, I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Madge on behalf of the Committee of Literary Club. Sir, thank you for a detailed exposition to the text for the first 2 days. And Sir said he has a lot to cover in the next 2 days, section 3 and section 4. There was this interesting conversation yesterday happening upon how section 2 is more confusing or section 3 is more confusing. I hope today we will get an answer whether section 2 is more confusing or section 3 is more confusing. Sir, we request you to take over and begin with the next section. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Parth. I hope every one of you can hear me loud and
Yes, sir.
clear. Okay.
And I request the students who are recording to pin Dr. Madge now so that we can have a better view of sir. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes. Now we come today to the third section, which is called the fire sermon. I remember Dr. Sinha wanting me to speak on Eliot's use of myth. And now, here in the fire sermon, of all the sections of the wasteland, we have ample opportunity to see that mythical method in action. First, we will see the method in action and then I will talk about it. As usual, I should like to speak first of the central theme of the third section of the fire sermon. The theme around which the fire sermon is woven is debasement of all romantic ideals like beauty and love. The debasement of beauty is shown mainly with reference to the natural beauty, the appearance of Thames in modern times. Natural beauty is simply now muddied. This is how he shows. And that begins with the very opening line of the third section. Let us start reading the session. Yes, yes. The river stent is broken. The last fingers of leaf clutch and sink into the wet bank. The wind crosses the brown land unheard. The nymphs are departed. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. The river bears no empty bottles, sandwich papers, silk handkerchiefs, cardboard boxes, cigarette ends, and other testimony of summer nights. The nymphs are departed, and their friends, the loitering heirs of city directors, have departed, have left no addresses. By the waters of Lehman I sat down and wept. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. Sweet Thames, run softly, for I speak not loud or long. Let us see. This is where we say the mythical method. As is well known, the line, Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song, is of course an allusion. It's a line directly taken from Spenser's wedding song, Prothalamion. As you know, Spencer has two wedding songs. One is Prothalamion and the other Epithalamion. Sweet Thames Run Softly Till I End My Song is a refrain that Spencer uses at the end of each stanza in Prothalamion. And that stands in sharp contrast to the appearance of Thames in modern times. How does Thames appear in modern times? The river stent is broken, the last fingers of leaf clutch and sink into the land. And then the river bears no empty bottles, sandwich paper, silk handkerchiefs, cardboard boxes, cigarette ends, and other testimony of summer nights. And then the nymphs are departed. Once again, a line from that Spenserian poem. Departed and have left no addresses. By waters of Leman I sat down and wept. This is a reference, an allusion to tempest by the waters, not Leman. Here, Leman, of course, is a famous lake in Lausanne, Switzerland. Eliot had gone there for treatment for his nervous breakdown in the sanatorium of Dr. Roger Vittos. And so it's a reference to that lake by the waters of Leman. If Ferdinand sat at a different lake in the tempest, here the speaker says uh, he sat down and wept by the waters of Leman. Why? Because of this appearance of Thames. How Thames is muddied, vulgarized. Look at what the Thames carries. When we were students, uh, undergraduates, and when we saw this poem first, this was one of the lines that appealed to us. The Spain, it was very funny for us to read the river carrying cardboard boxes, cigarette ends, and silk handkerchiefs. We simply wondered at the rebelliousness of this poet. That was fun to read. There are many such other lines also. Uh, in Jarford Proof, the very opening line, for instance. Let's go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. That line also appealed to us because we saw there, here is a poet who is doing something new, something remarkable. And since we were also in our youth, those lines appealed to us with a special force. And this is exactly what is meant by mythical method. Contrasting, juxtaposing two pictures, one from the past and one from the present, and let the juxtaposition, let the images speak. You don't offer any comments. The picture speaks for itself, and it speaks tremendously. It does the work of so many other narrative lines. The poet doesn't have to say anything. It is what we call condensation of meaning. The meaning is condensed. Maximum meaning is condensed in minimum lines and words. Now, that is precisely what Eliot says in his review of Joyce's novel, Ulysses. And as everybody knows, every Eliot scholar knows, Eliot has this habit of appearing to comment on other people's work, but indirectly he's commenting on his own work also. Now let us read, because whatever Eliot says about mythical method in that review is so important that it needs a word for word reading of that paragraph. And I'll do it now for you. Yes. In his review of Joyce's magnum opus, Ulysses, which was, by the way, published in the same year, 1922. In his review of that book, which is published as an essay, Ulysses, Order and Form, Eliot has this to say: in using the myth, in manipulating a continuous parallel between contemporaneity and antiquity, Mr. Joyce is pursuing a method which others must pursue after him. It is simply a way of controlling, of ordering, of giving a shape and a significance to the immense panorama of futility and anarchy which is contemporary history. It's a method already adumbrated by Mr. Yeats, and of the need for which I believe Mr. Yeats to have been the first contemporary to be conscious. Instead of narrative method, we may now use mythical method. It is, I seriously believe, a step toward making the modern world possible for art. And it is the last sentence that, to my mind, is most important. The mythical method makes the modern world possible for art. Otherwise, it's not amenable to literary use or to poetic use. To say something significant about the modern world, it's necessary that we follow the mythical method. And what is this mythical method? This is the method. Take a picture from the past and take a picture from the present and use them as contrasts. Juxtapose those pictures, juxtapose those images. This is what Eliot calls maintaining a continuous parallel between antiquity and contemporaneity. And let the picture speak for itself. You don't have to do anything. This is a method of bricolage, meaning in the Westland, the method that is used is bricolage, that is juxtaposition of the past and the present. And Dr. Sinha, of course, wanted me to talk on Eliot's use of myth. Well, it is easy to see that Eliot uses myth very sparingly in his poetry. The use of myth as such is more prominent in his plays. Most of his plays are based on the myth. And I had a conversation with a scholar that Dr. Sinha knows, Devendra Kohli, who was a specialist on Robert Graves. He made a perceptive comment in a conversation with me in Hyderabad. He said that there's a difference between Mr. Eliot and Mr. Yeats and people like him. Yeats is a myth user. He doesn't make myths of his own. He makes use of the available myths. Whereas people like Yeats, Blake, and even Robert Graves, they are myth makers, whereas Eliot is a myth user. That's the difference between the two. She wanted me to talk on that, so that's what I'm saying. And let me also stress that in his poetry, the use of myth is not that much as it is in plays. That's the only thing. And he uses the available myths. Now, Matheson, in his comment on this passage, says that you don't have to know that the line uh, sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. You need not know this is from Spencer. Even without that, you can see by the very tone in which the line is spoken that here is something different. Look at this. The river bears no empty bottles, sandwich paper, silk handkerchiefs. After describing all this uh, dirt that modern Thames carries, to say sweet Thames is ironic. The irony is unmistakable. How can such a river be sweet? Meaning that the irony in the expression sweet Thames is evident, obvious to any reader, even without knowing that this line is from Spencer. Of course, once he knows from Spencer, then he can appreciate it more. That is true. Now, let's come to the next line. I speak not loud nor long, but at my back in a cold blast, I hear the rattle of bones and the chuckle spread from ear to ear. A rat, a rat crept softly through the vegetation, dragging its slimy belly on the bank while I was fishing in the dull canal. On a gas on a winter evening round behind the gas house, musing upon the king my brother's wreath, and also the king my father's death before him. So this is a clear reference to the tempest. Ferdinand musing upon the, the king who died, the brother as well as his father cannot. But that is to be once again contrasted with the speaker's fishing in the canal. Whereas Ferdinand comes to know about the sea change that occurred to his father. Here, the speaker, while fishing, it can be seen, fishing can be seen as a symbolic activity. The quester, fishing for meaning in the world, fishing for meaning in the world. Now, here, the speaker, while fishing, what does he find? Only a dull rat. A rat, meaning such disgusting thing. A rat crept softly to the vegetation, dragging its slimy belly on the bank. And he is fishing for meaning, but what he gets is a bloated, slimy rat. Once again, a dis- disappointing result. And then white bodies naked on the low damp ground, and bones cast in a little dry garret, rattled by the rat's foot only from ear to ear. But at my back from time to time I hear the sound of horns and motors. We shall bring Sweeney to Mrs. Porter in the spring. Oh, the moon shone bright on Mrs. Porter and on her daughter. They washed their feet in soda water. This is once again a line. They washed their feet in soda water, the moon shining on Mrs. That was one of the lines which appealed to us in those youthful days, in our halcyon days, so to speak. Now, here at my back from time to time, you can easily see, meaning those who are familiar with English poetry can easily see this is allusion to Andrew Marvell. At my back, I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. That is parodied here. At my back, I hear the sound of horns and motors. Once again, every modern line as we felt then and as we feel even now. We shall bring Sweeney to Mrs. Porter. Sweeney is one of those characters. We can say an anti-self, to use the words of Yeats, anti-self of J. Alfred Prufrock. If J. Alfred Prufrock is timid, shy, a man who just cannot do anything, Sweeney is exactly the opposite character. Very uh, earthly, very fleshly character. And so Sweeney to Mrs. Porter in the spring. At my back, I always hear the, the sound of horns. Now, the horn has a double meaning. As Eliot says in his note on this line, the sound of horn is the sound of automobile, of course, the motor cars, but at the same time, it is also the sound of hunter's horn. And Eliot, in his note, gives you there a, a reference which he has fabricated. There he gives you the reference, Day and Parliament of Bees. He mentions the name of the poet, Day, an Elizabethan obscure poet. But that is what he says. But actually, there is no such poet. It is a reference which he has fabricated all by himself. And that is why I say, don't trust the notes that much. Don't be led by those notes. The notes are not always trustworthy. In fact, I may mention it now. In 1957, Eliot apologized to scholars and termed his notes as an excellent example of bogus scholarship. So you can see what opinion Eliot has about his own notes. So we don't have to give more importance to the notes than we should give to the text. The text is more important. And so the sound of horns, the sound of horns, Eliot said this is the hunter's horn blowing. And the allusion is also to the mythological practice of hunters when the spring started and the announcement of the onset of spring is done to the horn by the hunters. So Actaeon and Diana, that's the mythology. Actaeon and Diana. Diana, the name of the hunting goddess. Now, Mrs. Porter in the spring and uh, the moon shone bright on Mrs. Porter and her daughter. This is once again a parody. Parody of what? Parody of, you will see in the last line of that uh, poem, there is a reference to Wagner's opera, Parsifal. My French may be terrible, so you have to bear that. Et c'est mot d'enfant, chata dans les couples. That is, oh, the sound of children laughing and the sound coming from the dome of the building. The children laughing in the dome, the laughter of children laughing in the dome. That is in Parsifal. Now, in Wagner's Parsifal, the sound of children laughing and the sound coming from the dome, that is a signal that his quest for the Holy Grail is now over. He will very soon find that. But before that, the wasteland myth also is there as narrated by uh, J.C. Weston. J.C. Weston says the fisher king of the wasteland is cured by Parsifal, and before he cures the wounded, maimed monarch of the wasteland, there is the feet washing ceremony. The feet, Parsifal's feet are washed by holy water. Now, that is parodied. The feet washing ceremony in the original legend of the Westland is parodied here by Mrs. Porter and her daughter washing their feet in soda water. I can go a step further and suggest to you also Mrs. Porter and taking into account the erotic context, Mrs. Sweeney, I'm sorry, Sweeney and Mrs. Porter coming together in the season of spring, taking into account that erotic context, washing their feet in soda water has a lot of suggestive meaning. The feet, meaning this is a synecdoche, part for the whole. The feet are not only feet, but the entire body, the part for the whole. And soda water, the I can't go beyond that. The effervescent soda water, they are dipping their feet, they are washing their bodies in the effervescent soda water. This is a debasement, as you can find, of the feet washing ceremony in Parsifal. And the moment it thinks of this debasement, the speaker thinks of another debasement of the most sweet emotion that the human mind has so far known. And that sweet emotion is love. If the passage on the river Thames shows you the debasement of natural beauty, from now on you get, until almost the end of the poem, you get the debasement of the sweetest emotion, that is love, in various forms. In all, there are 7 encounters. And I have something to say when we say those 7 encounters. Let us see this. Twit, 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 chuck, 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 chuck. So rudely forced. Tell you. Once again, this is orchestration. The change of Philomel by Tevius, which we saw yesterday in the game of chess. It's simply the orchestration, another form of debasement of love. That brutal rape is nothing but the debasement of love. Now, once again, another orchestration and another form of debasement. Unreal city. You will recall that passage in Burial of the Dead, the final passage. Unreal city. Under the brown fog of a winter noon, Mr. Eugenides, the Smyrna merchant, unshaven, with a pocket full of currants, CIF, London, documents at sight, asked me in demotic French to luncheon at the Cannon Street Hotel, followed by a weekend at the Metropole. Now, there are difference of opinion about what this what form of debasement it is. In his note, Eliot identifies this Smyrna merchant with one-eyed merchant about whom Madame Sosostri speaks in the Burial of the Dead. And because of that identification by Eliot himself, some scholars believe that this one-eyed merchant asking the speaker for a weekend at Metropole is an invitation for homosexual indulgence. He is a gay because Mr. Eugenides, the Smyrna merchant, is a gay person because he is identified with the one-eyed merchant. Now, I don't quite agree with that. My view is if you look at the commercial terminology or vocabulary associated with this merchant, C- CIF London documents at site Ask me in Demontic French to luncheon at the Cannon Street Hotel. All these business or commercial uh, vocabulary terminology associated with Mr. Eugenides can suggest that the invitation is not for homosexual indulgence. The invitation is for a spree of casual sex, which we are told businessmen normally indulge in. They may or they may not, but casual sex is another form of debasement of love that is there. Now you come to the central episode of the fire sermon, that is the typist episode. This episode is narrated to us by character Tiresias, who appears in Oedipus Rex, the blind prophet. There are many stories about Tiresias. We will tell one by one. Tiresias, uh, while going through a jungle, saw the snakes coupling together, and with his stick he beat them apart. As soon as he touched the snakes, he turned into a woman, and he had to remain like that because those snakes were not ordinary snakes. They make him into a woman. Again, after many years, he passes to the same jungle and he sees the same snakes twisting and coupling together. Once again, he separates them with the stick. So, when he does that, he becomes a man again. So, Tiresias is a man who knows what it means to live like a man and what it means to live like a woman. He knows life from both the angles. Okay. Now, because of this advantage of Tiresias, Zeus and his wife Hera, or Jupiter and Juno, Zeus and Hera have a debate. What is the debate about? The debate is about who derives more pleasure from sexual activity or sexual intercourse. Who derives more pleasure, man or woman? Now it was difficult for them to decide because Zeus is a man, Hera is a woman. They will always side with their own gender. So they decide to ask, they decide to have Tiresias as the neutral umpire. And Tiresias is called and asked the question. You tell us because you know lives from both the sides. Who derives more pleasure, man or woman? And Tiresias' answer is it is man. Man who derives more pleasure. Now, Zeus is happy, but Hera is furious with this answer because the answer is not in her favor. So she makes Tiresias blind. She takes away, as a punishment, Hera takes away the eyes of Tiresias. But Jupiter doesn't forget the favor that Tiresias has done to him. Tiresias is compensated by Zeus. And the compensation is though he is blind, he has visionary powers. That is how he has become a blind prophet. And in Oedipus Rex, as Dr. Chanan, that is his favorite play, Oedipus Rex, you see Tiresias there as a blind prophet, telling Oedipus the exact name because of whom the Thebes is experiencing such a pestilence. Why there is plague in the city of Thebes. Now, here the episode is Tiresias narrates an incident. Tiresias is taken here as the ageless spectator of our human tragedy or comedy, whatever you want to call it. He is the ageless spectator of our human comedy or human drama, and he narrates to us a story of an encounter between a man and a woman, both belong to the modern automatic age. Let's see this. Many themes come together. Of course, one of them is the mechanization of human personality, or what I still like to call the a stronger term, robotization of human personality. Let us see this now. At the violet hour, that's the evening hour. Romantic expectations are raised by the word violet. At the violet hour, when the eyes and back turn upward from desk, when the human engine waits like a taxi, throbbing, waiting. You can see human, the office goers reduced to machines like the taxi, throbbing and waiting. And the moment there is throbbing, Tiresias remembers his own throbbing. He is also throbbing between two lives. I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives. Old man with wrinkled female breasts can see at the violet hour the evening hour that strives homeward and brings the sailor home from sea. Tennyson's Requiem. Home is the sailor, home from sea. Similarly, the parody of it, home is the typist, home from her office, brings the evening hour that strives homeward and brings the sailor home from sea. The typist home at tea time. She clears her breakfast, lights her stove, and lays out food in tins. Once again, these are all details of the modern cosmopolitan civilization. Her stove and lays out food in tins. Out of the window, perilously spread, her drying combinations, touched by the sun's last rays. You can see her underwear hanging on the string by the sunlight. And they are spread. How are they spread? Perilously spread. The word perilous is reminiscent. It reminds you of something romantic, the fairy lands forlorn, magic catchments opening out on the perilous seas forlorn. If you know, Ode to the Nightingale by John Keats. Peerless. There the magic casements open out. And here, look at the uh, what I can only call vulgarization in modern life. Instead of magic casements, you have the underwear of a typist, illuminated by the last rays of the sun. Her drawing combination touched by the sun's last rays. On the divan are piled at night her bed, sofa come bed, so sofa by day, bed by night. Out of the divan are piled at night her bed, stockings, slippers, camisoles, and stays. I, Tiresias, old man with wrinkled dugs, perceived the scene and foretold the rest. I too, I too awaited the expected guest. And now you get here the encounter between the typist and the young man, which is one of the central indictments of by Eliot on modern civilization. He, the young man carbuncular, arrives. A small house agent's clerk with one bold stare, one of the low on whom assurance sits as a silk hat on a Bradford millionaire. Once again, a metaphysical conceit, we would say. Confidence on the face of this young man is like a silk hat on the Bradford millionaire. The time is now propitious as he guesses. The meal is ended. She's bored and tired. Look at the bathos of the whole thing. She's bored and tired, and then endeavors to engage her in caresses, which still are unreproved if undesired. Flushed and decided, he assaults at once. Exploring hands encounter no defense. His vanity requires no response and makes a welcome of indifference. And I, Tiresias, have forsuffered all, enacted on this same divan or bed, I who have sat by Thebes below the wall and walked among the lowest of the dead, bestows one final patronizing kiss and gropes his way, finding the stores unlit. So you get there, the encounter. The whole encounter is marked by one thing, and that is absence of love. The whole activity is carried out just without any trace of emotion. It is just a biological routine, as you will find now. Look at her reaction. She turns and looks a moment in the glass, hardly aware of her departed lover. Her brain allows one half formed thought to pass. Look at what she says now. Well, now that's done. Well, now that's done. And I'm glad it's over. And then look at Eliot, the speaker's lament. When lovely woman stoops to folly and paces about her room again alone, she smooths her hand with automatic, she smooths her hair with automatic hand and puts the record on the gramophone. The whole force of satire lies in automatic. Look at how when lovely woman stoops to folly, once again the words are redolent. Those who are familiar with English literature will immediately recognize this is a line from The Vicar of Wakefield, Oliver Goldsmith, where the daughter of the vicar, her name is Olivia, she does a foolish thing in life and she repents her folly and says to herself in a song, when a lovely woman stoops to folly, she has only one option left. and that is suicide. Sense of repentance, sense of guilt. But in modern times, people have lost the moral dimension. For them, this sexual act is nothing but a natural biological routine of the day. Now that's done, I am glad it's over. It is just like brushing teeth, shaving. This also is has become a ritual of the day. It has lost the act of love has lost all its dimension. Uh, Nobody has to speak very loudly on this. You can the scene is so apparent here, and you can see what debasement is there. There are many things that that I can support. For instance, Eliot's comments on Baudelaire's attitude to sex and how that is far more civilized than it is. I can tell you that, but that would take a long. The sum total of that long quotation simply is that sex as sin is more interesting, is more significant than sex as natural, life giving, cheery automatism of the modern times. That is what um, Baudelaire knew, Eliot says. And that's why Baudelaire is a moral poet as opposed to the general Victorian fear that Baudelaire is a bad, immoral influence on the young generation. But Eliot says that's not so. Okay, that's there. Now, this music crept by me upon the waters, along the strand up Queen Victoria Street. Oh, city, city, I can sometimes hear beside a public bar in Lower Thames Street the pleasant whining of a mandolin and the clatter and the chatter from within, where fishmen lounge at noon, where the walls of Magnus Marty hold inexplicable splendor of Ionian white and gold. This is a far cry, meaning Eliot mentions here something like an oasis in the desert, a spot of joy, which he really feels. Eliot was very fond of fishermen, sailors, right from childhood, and so he almost hero worshipped them right from childhood. And you find here this music meaning this music from the gramophone of the typist. This music crept by me upon the waters. Once again, this is a, an allusion. Um, this music crept by me upon the. I just forget the source now, but this is a line from some play. I'll tell you. I'll just check up and tell you tomorrow. Uh, and along the stand up the Queen Victoria Street. Oh, city, city, I can sometimes hear beside the public bar. Then it's an apostrophe to the city. I can sometimes hear. Look at how joyful the words are. The pleasant whining of a mandolin, a clatter and a chatter, meaning signs of life. And then finally, where the fishmen lounge at noon. A very happy, free life. So different from the claustrophobic life of the portrait of the lady or the game of chess or here even the typist and the lover. What a difference! It's a world of difference. The fishermen, their lives, adventurous lives, open, free life, almost I can use the word Laurentian life. And this public bar is beside Magnus Martyr. Magnus Martyr was a church of building. No, that church was Magnus Martyr. and it was a very beautiful building. We are told Eliot was very fond of it. It was near his bank, Lloyd's Bank. During lunch break, Eliot would often go there and and pray, I think, there in Magnus Martyr. And when the London Corporation decided to demolish that building, Eliot was one of the protesters who openly opposed the demolition of the building. But ultimately, the demonstration meant nothing. The building was demolished, and now the building doesn't exist in London, but it was there, and Eliot often liked that. So that is, yeah, and now once again, now you come to see the once again the same point is made. The natural beauty of the river spoilt by industry in modern times. And then there is a mention of a love affair from history. Let us see that. And then finally, the song of what we call Thames Daughters. Let us see this. The river sweats oil and tar, the barges drift with the turning tide. Great sails wide to leeward swing on the heavy spar. The barges wash drifting logs down Greenwich Reach past the Isle of Dogs. Once again, the industrial West spoiling the beauty of the Thames. And thank God Eliot didn't write here, sweet Thames run softly till I in mass. That also would fit in here. And then Elizabeth and Leicester, Elizabeth the First and Leicester, the famous love affair from Elizabethan history. Uh, he was the favorite uh, favorite almost what shall we say, an ardent admirer of the Queen. Uh, in s- she was discussing with her courtiers. There's one story. She was discussing with her courtiers about what England should do when a battle was inevitable. And then she asked one by one. One courtier said this, another said that. When she comes to Leicester, Leicester tells her, "Madam, or Your Majesty, I can die for you." Now, Elizabeth was a very smart woman. She said, "Don't die for me. You have to fight for me. So don't die. Live for me. Make the other soldier die." Now, General Patton in that film, if you have seen that film, Patton, the first sentence spoken by Patton reminds you of Elizabeth. Patton says there, "Battles are not, no bastard ever won a battle by dying for his country. Rather, he has won the battle by making the other chap, other bastard die for his country. So don't die for me." Elizabeth said, "Don't be so romantic. Don't die for me, but fight for me. And in order to fight for me, you have to ensure that you don't die." So Elizabeth and Leicester beating oars, the stern was formed a gilded shell, red and gold, the brisk swell, rippled both shores, southward wind carried downstream. The peal of bells, while white towers, and then you have the refrain there. Now, this is a reference to Elizabethan history, a boat ride by the Queen and Leicester, and everybody felt by their intimacy and the way they were flirting with each other. Everybody felt that they were soon going to be married. Unfortunately, that did not happen because she discovered that Leicester was a married man. And then she sent him on a rack. So now let us come to this uh, Thames Daughters that is based on Wagner's opera, The Wedding Ring. The English translation of the title is The Wedding Ring or Die Gotterdammerung. That is the German title. Now, there the Rhine daughters speak. Here, the daughters of Thames speak. And the daughters can be easily identified from their place. One is from Highbury, the other from Moorgate, and the last one from Margate. These are the stations that Eliot daily met with as he went to his office in London. By the train he went, as he commuted in his daily daily travel, he saw these stations pass by one, as many Bombay commuters do in their local trains, as we can say. So here also, but these these daughters speak of how love undid them, how they had a traumatic experience of love. Let us see this. Trams and dusty trees. Highbury bore me. So this daughter is from Highbury. Highbury bore me. I was born in Highbury. Richmond and Kew, the famous gardens, undid me. By Richmond, I raised my knees, supine on the floor of a narrow canoe. So, by Richmond and Kew undid me. These gardens of love undid me. But yet, in spite of this experience, she says she went back to that life. By Richmond, I raised my knees, supine on the floor. I think that should be obvious enough. On a narrow canoe. No repentance of the about the early experience. Like the typist, there is no sense of repentance. After the act, the typist smooths her hair with automatic hand and puts her record on the gramophone as if nothing has happened. Now come to the next. My feet are at Moorgate and my heart under my feet. After the event, he wept. He promised a new start. I made no comment. What should I resent? Once again, the same thing. The lover had jilted her, but even after the jilt, he came back to her and he promised a new start. Said sorry, promised a new start, but I did not resent. I had nothing to say for whatever he did or whatever he was now doing. I made no comment. And what is there to speak of? Come to now. Finally, on Margaret Science, I can connect nothing with nothing. The broken fingernails of dirty hands, my people, humble people who expect nothing. La, la. On Margaret Sands, once again, I can connect nothing with nothing. It would be of interest for you to know that Eliot completed the writing of the Wasteland partly in Switzerland and the final part was drafted or written in this town, seaside town, small town near uh, small town in Kent, uh, Margate. Eliot was there for 2.5 months or so. He stayed there and completed the final part of the poem on Margate. Sans I can connect nothing with nothing. Now, this can be a reference to E.M. Foster's declaration in What I Believe. There he says, uh, E.M. Foster was a member of the Bloomsbury group, and that Bloomsbury group, their article of faith was liberalism, which is to be developed by personal relationships. Personal relationship is far more important than anything else. Thus, you go on connecting one with the other. That was the motto of the Bloomsbury group. You find that in E.M. Foster's novel, Howard's End. Margaret says, only connect with people. Go on one person to another, that person to another. That is how we go on uh, spreading our society. I can connect nothing with nothing. The very words nothing with nothing will also remind you of Lear. When Lear asks his favorite daughter, how much do you love me? She says, I have nothing to say. And then he says, nothing, then nothing will come out of nothing. And that is how he deprives her of all the advantages uh, of his kingdom. And he marries her. Of course, the French king marries her. You know that the story. But there is this famous line: "Nothing, then nothing shall come out of nothing." Here, Eliot borrows that for his own purpose. I can connect nothing with nothing. I can make no sense of what's happening to me. I can connect nothing with nothing. So you see this. Now, there is a very acutely perceptive comment by an Eliot scholar, John T. Mayer, where he says that in the fire sermon, the debasement of love is shown through 7 sexual encounters. The three daughters of Thames, then you get the typist, then you get Mr. Eugenides, and finally you get Elizabeth and Leicester, or Actaeon and Diana, Philomel, the change of Philomel. All these encounters are these are a parody of 7 deadly sins. In medieval drama, there used to be one favorite scene, the 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 procession of 7 deadly sins, parade of 7 deadly sins. Here, the 7 deadly sins, the medieval practice is parodied. The 7 sexual encounters shown here are a parody, and they are a parody in the sense. Whereas in the medieval period, they are shown as sins. These encounters are not felt as sins by the participants. They are regarded only as a natural act. That is not perceived as sin. And that is the tragedy of the modern world. It's not only that God is dead in the world, even sin is dead. And that is more terrible than the death of God. Now, when beauty is gone from life, love is gone from life. In fact, when romanticism ends, where can a man go? A person can go only towards asceticism. And that's where you come. To Carthage, then I came, burning, 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 burning in the fire of my passions. That's what he says in my in Confessions, Saint Augustine. This is a line from Saint Augustine's book, his autobiography, Confessions. These confessions: to Carthage then I came and saw my passions boiling in a pot, in a yes, in a pot. So I came burning, burning, burning. Now here Eliot's comment is very significant. His note on the line is, in this line I am bringing west and east to, together by the mention of the fire. It's the fire of passion in Augustine and in Buddha's fire sermon also. The fire sermon does begin with these words. The world is on fire. I am on fire. So fire is common both in the east and the west. The fire of passion. Now, how do you drive away this fire of passion? The answer is, to drive away, you adopt a homeopathic remedy. The like cures the like. The fire of passion is driven out by another fire, and that another fire is the fire of asceticism. So that is Buddha's fire sermon. That is how you get rid of the fire of passions. In four quartets, Eliot speaks of fire redeeming you from fire. Fire redeems fire. So one fire goes, another fire comes. And so that is how it is. To Carthage then I came, burning, burning, burning. And there is a story that I should like to tell. In the early 70s, in our English department at the university, we had a young teacher, newly joined. He was just fresh from England. He had developed a very deliberately and consciously developed British accent. He was a fine ELT teacher, but he liked to smoke when he was teaching, lecturing and smoking at the same time, like Shelley Skylark, soaring and singing. So smoking and teaching at the same time. Now he had written on the wall the following words. He said, "Don't smoke unless you are on fire. I am," he used to say. So that was a warning to students not to smoke, but he had made a uh, facility for himself like that. So to Carthage then I came, burning, 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 burning. And then, O Lord, thou pluckest me out. O Lord, thou pluckest, burning. Look at the syntax here, so significant. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. When you turn to cynicism, I'm sorry, when you turn to asceticism, It's God selecting you. In Murder in the Cathedral, you get the same idea. God plucking you out. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. You choose me of all the persons. You pluck me out. And then look at this syntax. O Lord, thou pluckest, burning. It is what if our Lewis would call enactment of meaning. That me is indeed plucked out from the next two lines. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. And the next two lines, O Lord, thou pluckest, burning. Me is plucked out by the syntax also. This is enactment of meaning. Now, what does this mean? Plucking you out. It means asceticism. You succeed in asceticism and you succeed in romanticism also. When you forget your own ego, you have to pluck yourself out. As long as there is ego, you don't succeed. So that is the fire sermon. Pluck you, pluck you out from the stream. You must efface yourself. In tradition and the individual talent, Eliot said the same thing. The, the poet has no personality. The, the poet the poet is not a personality. When he writes, he escapes from his personality. It's an escape from personality, not an expression of personality. Now, this is what in asceticism, in art, as well as in romanticism. You must forget your ego. This is very simple. I'll explain to you very easily. One who cannot one who cannot forget himself in love, one who cannot, if he cannot submit himself to his beloved, how can he submit himself to God? It's the same thing. The activities, forgetting the ego, destroying the ego is very important in all these activities. That is the fire sermon. The fire is such. The fire must burn out your personality or your ego. That's important. So that is all. I think. I hope. Yeah. It is 12:32. That's about all I have to say. Now you can shoot your questions at me. Slings and arrows.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Mm, mm,
I request the participants to either unmute and put forward their questions, or you can even post your questions in the chat box. Would also like to hear your comments, observations, feedback. I think this was a really new perspective to uh, added to the commonly perceived notions about Eliot being an anti-romantic poet altogether.
mm.
As you said, sir, it
Yeah.
is really difficult to achieve romanticism and realism both,
Mm.
and Eliot does that so well.
Yes. Yeah. Yesterday I said that there was a person who once said, he was in our department, he said that Eliot is a romantic who is ashamed to be a romantic. My answer to him was, no, he's not ashamed to be romantic, he's afraid to be romantic. And that's a line of argument we can build up right from the start. So,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and he's not so much against romanticism, he's against the pale imitators of romantics. Again and again, it's very clear from his comments. You know, he reviewed a book by Dr. Wolf. The title of the book is History of Medieval Philosophy. And in a review of that book, Eliot says something very interesting. He says the last part of Dr. Wolf's book is particularly interesting. It shows that w- one great philosophy never vanquishes another great philosophy. It only destroys its degenerate descendants. How can we tell who is the greatest prize fighter in the world if one champion is always knocked out by some other young man? I think that's very expressive. It's not romanticism that he's against. He is against the degenerate descendants called Georgians. And you will find there are so many echoes, not only echoes, you will go to at length at the end. Eliot changed his opinion about Shelley also. See, he had dismissed Shelley as an eternally adolescent poet. But in his essay on Dante, he is talking about translate the difficulty of translating Dante or to write like him. And there he says, in Ode to the West Wind, Shelley has mastered the stanza Tarzarima with remarkable skill, meaning even he has not been able to do that while writing the final section of the four quartets, where he was trying to write like Dante. But he said, I have not succeeded. Shelley has done a much better job. This is what many. This is very significant as it comes from Eliot on the romantics.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Dr. Madge, while others are thinking,
Mm.
I just have a couple of observations
Yes.
and a small difference of opinion. First
Mm.
of all, I must say it was a brilliant talk. Absolutely
Thank you. Sir.
amazing, I should say.
Mm.
And there are two topics I would like you to discuss maybe tomorrow.
Mm.
One is the fact that, in spite of being a modern poet, Eliot doesn't really have syntactic inversions,
Mm.
which is a hallmark of those who came later. And the
Mm.
second is how, in his poetry, ultimately the fire and the rose become one. I think we could take them up tomorrow.
Mm.
My small query is about the word Shanta, in that Percival thing. I think, I've forgotten most of my French, but I double checked with the French dictionary. It
Mm.
should refer to singing, and I'll
Yes.
I'll see how it makes sense.
Oh,
You know,
yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry, meaning I made a mistake there by saying
yeah,
laughing. It's not laughing,
yeah.
singing. Yes. Yes.
And that
That
connects with
that is my mistake. Yeah.
tweet, 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 jug, jug, jug. The whole thing connects. No?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to take up these two topics, or you want to keep them for tomorrow?
No,
It depends
tomorrow we
on.
can, because one is a big topic
Yeah,
that you speak of, that is fire and rose.
yeah, yeah.
I think let me tell you just, they are, they never, they are not one in Eliot's poetry, even
That's
after the four quartets. That is, that is my feeling. And because what he says there is, uh, all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well.
yes.
When the tongues of fire are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. If we go simply by the grammar all shall be well if, or all shall be well when the fire and the rose are one. The basic question is, can they be one? At least for Eliot. And the answer to my mind is no. One can go back to the earlier unpublished poem called A Song, where he shows a girl offering white flowers to him. And he says, you are giving me Arctic flowers. Your love is Arctic. What I want is, don't you have don't you have tropical flowers with scarlet life in them? So that is what he wants. Scarlet flower, tropical flowers with scarlet life. What he gets are white Arctic flowers. And that, I think, remains the conflict between the expected and the experience. The conflict between ideal and the actual. That remains haunting Eliot until the end. The fire, this, when the fire and the rose are one. I don't think in my poem, I have said on Eliot that now that he is in heaven, sure to be heaven, at least in heaven he will find that the fire and the rose are one. But at least on this earth, it is the fire, meaning it's the rose of beauty and the fire of passion. Can they come together? Very difficult. Yeah,
The second questions we'll take up tomorrow.
yeah.
I think.
That is a syntactic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That can be, Hopkins has done that much more than
Yeah.
Eliot has done.
Yeah. In fact,
And in
Eliot
the
has
same, yeah,
done it, yeah.
yes.
Yes, any other question?
Parth, just check if they want two sessions now, or will
Yeah.
one long session be?
Yeah, we have 1 day remaining, and we have two
Mm,
sections to deal with.
mm,
Um, Section 4, as it is called the most important section by the critics, we are really looking
yeah,
forward to it. And Section 5, another interesting section,
yeah,
which Pound also did not edit much.
yes, that's true.
So that is also something we are looking forward
Mm,
to.
mm,
So now let us take a count. Participants, do we have one long session tomorrow? A long session would mean around 11 to 1:15,
yes,
isn't it, sir?
yes,
Or we wish to complete at 12:30 tomorrow and meet at 11 again on Sunday, if that is
mm,
convenient for the speaker and the participants also.
mm.
Uh, Kindly express your opinions in the chat box, or you can unmute. Um, we will go as per the general consensus. Do we wish to have a long session tomorrow, or we wish to complete on time and meet again for one more
Again,
session on Sunday?
yes, day after.
Extend for a day.
Mm,
And it's a Sunday, so if we take up the fifth day, it will be a Sunday.
mm.
Okay. Asmita says long session tomorrow would be better, as it will be continuous. So one more day would be great.
Would you like to take a boat?
Yeah, I mean, we will count the numbers from the chat box, sir.
Yeah.
No, for me, both the options, of course. There's nothing.
Okay, we have opinions coming up in the chat box. Till now, 3 votes for Sunday and one, two votes for tomorrow.
I think all told there are 7 or 8 votes.
Yes, sir. One is a neutral vote.
Yeah, like Tiresias.
Elect.
The majority goes for Sunday.
Mm,
Oh, there's another Saturday.
Maybe we could meet at 10:30 tomorrow
yes, that can be.
and then finish before 1 with a short break.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I think we can have a short break of 5 minutes in between
Yes.
tomorrow.
In between, we can chat away like this and start
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, that can be.
So shall we meet at 10:30 tomorrow then?
Okay.
That makes sure that
People
people
join. Yeah, by
go
that
home
time.
for that.
Mm,
Yes, we
Is
can
it
send out a mail to all the participants today
yeah.
that we will start the session at 10:30 tomorrow.
mm.
Um, uh, uh, Jayashri madam, is it okay with the MIT timings? How about your students? 10:30. If we begin at 10:30, would they have got free by 10:30? Seems to have got busy. No worries. We can message her and get that checked. Uh, I think that it looks fine. 10:30. So we
Yeah,
begin by
10:30 looks
10:35
good.
or so, and
Yeah.
gradually I think everybody can join.
Yes.
And we will try to complete by 1, if possible.
Yeah.
All right, and also the feedback link will be circulated tomorrow, so that all the participants during the session itself can copy the feedback link.
Mm,
If there are no further questions, shall we conclude?
yeah.
If anybody has a question, please, most welcome. All right. Uh, Looks like there are no more questions.
Yes.
Professor Sinha, if you have something to say.
Actually, I already had my say.
Yeah, yeah, you you had your say.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Tomorrow is the last working day. Oh, that is a concern, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Then of course we
Tomorrow
should.
happens to be the last working day before
Yeah.
summer
So
vacation.
there will be meetings. Yeah.
So there will be meetings in many
Mm.
institutions.
Yeah. That would.
That's important.
So
So,
Some make it Sunday, then doesn't matter.
or sir, if possible, shall we keep 10:30 to 1 on Sunday?
no,
Yeah.
that will be
So,
difficult. You know what?
yeah, so tomorrow
A lot of
can
people.
be a break.
No. I think a lot of people, may have made plans for the weekend.
Oh, oh, I see.
Sunday would be a problem. Such a long session.
That's true. Oh, that happens to be the last working day tomorrow. Yeah, as per the new circular, now
Really?
the vacations begin from 1st May. So
Mm,
for people in
that
Gujarat,
is,
yeah, it will be hectic
mm,
tomorrow.
Other option would be uh, having something on Monday. That is the
yeah, have it on Monday. That also,
Then both Saturday and Sunday can be off,
yeah,
and Monday we can meet for a longer session.
yeah. Assuming they don't forget by Monday what we have done up till now.
We can we can we can mail the date and the time to all the participants.
Yes.
Uh,
one
hopefully,
minute. On
yes, sir.
Monday. See, I have a dentist appointment, but I can skip this session, and all of you will be there.
Uh, okay,
Yeah, but that's fine.
filled up tomorrow. Thank
Yes.
you all.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parth.
Thank you, sir.